Bear down, Bears fans. Another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. A lot to get into on today's episode. We got to talk about Matt Eberflus. We got to talk about some rumors that are flying around about the Bears not looking to move on from that first overall pick. Big shock there. I think we've got our answer on that. And of course, we got to do our road to the draft. All of that with Courtney Cronin on today's episode. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Courtney, how have you been this week?
Been good. It's been a busy week, oddly enough, just with like all of the random little NFL nuggets leading into the draft. But we're finally within that 2-week window, so it's gearing up to be an even busier couple weeks.
Yeah, the road to the draft is finally getting a little bit closer. Can't wait to be at Soldier Field. Hope to see you guys out there as well as we celebrate the first overall pick and possibly the 9th overall pick. Maybe get into that a little bit as well, as we got some reports around that. Ton to get to. Let's start it here, though. I think that this is we kind of had a little bit of this conversation for those of you who may have saw it or not, right? We had some issues with the pod yesterday. Apologies on our part. We'll be better. But I want to bring the question to Courtney because I think that this is a good question for somebody who's inside the building. Has the fade in the beard made our trust in Flus skyrocket? Has his look changed how much we believe in him? And have the Bears done enough to the point with Flus where, I guess realistically, right, the questions that we had on him last year, have they done enough with the team where we go, it's a good enough team, he should be able to overcome a lot of those questions?
Well, to address the first part, I do think that the confidence level in the way that Matt Eberflus, like his delivery publicly, and we've only seen him speak a couple of times since the offseason began. So there was like the new Flus, if you want to call it, the upgraded look with his hair, with the beard. He credits that to his wife and his daughters. Like they're the ones who pushed him to just switch it up. And I don't know, I feel like you'll get this because you're a guy. Whenever you go to your barber, when you leave there, how do you feel?
Oh, listen, it's a whole different game. Mm-hmm. Don't let me be in the streets on this. Like, I mean? Like,
I'm the same way. When I get my nails done, you can't tell me anything. You can't tell me anything. Like I run the world at that point. And so from a very basic perspective, I think Matt Eberflus feels better. He looks healthy. He looks like he's in control when he's at the podium, when he's addressing the team publicly or addressing things about the team publicly. We saw him do it at the Combine. We saw it at owners' meetings a couple of weeks ago. And that's kind of different from the Matt Eberflus we saw certainly at several points during the season last year, where he was fumbling over what he was trying to say at the podium, felt like he kind of like backed himself into a corner on certain things. And even at the season-ending press conference, when necessary questions about his job security had to be asked, like it's night and day from where he was then to where he is right now. And that's, a small part of it, like a small part of the overall view that we have on Matt Eberflus now going into year 3 with the Chicago Bears. The look is one thing, but what does that tell you behind everything else? Just the way that how confident he comes across. To me, it's knowing the security that he's going to be here for 2024, obviously, but I don't feel like he's on the hot seat for 2025. I know a lot of people view this as you've got to win right now with a new quarterback and with a team that went 7-10 last year, and that if this team does not make the playoffs, that there's a new coaching staff. I understand the logic that some people have behind that, but I also don't think we're taking into account how the Bears finally have an opportunity to do something differently. So why would they put their head coach, his staff, and even the front office in a spot where 2024 has to be 10 wins or more, you have to win the NFC North, like all of these outlandish expectations? How about just get to the playoffs first? How about just become a wild card team in a division that's incredibly competitive? Everybody's going to have a quarterback in the NFC North after the draft. And that's like, if they want to do things differently, whether it's, and this is all the way down from like George McCaskey to Kevin Warren to Ryan Poles to Matt Eberflus, knowing that they have a chance to break the cycle where rookie quarterback comes in, that the team drafts, to a staff that is in win or go home mode, I don't feel like they're putting Matt Eberflus and his staff in that spot because they know it takes time oftentimes with a rookie quarterback. Now, Caleb Williams is not coming to a team that typically looks like a team that has the number 1 overall pick, which is why I feel like that's kind of the confidence that Flus is exuding right now, knowing that he doesn't have to be pressed to get everything done in 2024, because I find it very hard to believe that after all this time, after this rebuild, which was a painful rebuild for the last 2 years, that the Bears would come in and continue that cycle of, okay, well, and I mean, things can change. If they win 4 games this year, then it's a different subject. Then it's a topic for a different day. And that could change everything. But if they're like an 8-win team, a 9-win team, and they don't make the playoffs, but they're showing continued improvement towards getting there, there's no way he's going to be on the hot seat at that point. And when you know that, when you know what the plan is, and you're confident that the organization, the people who are making decisions about your job security are in a spot of, no, like we can't go about this the way that we have with John Fox, with Matt Nagy, the last 2 coaches who were part of teams that went and drafted a quarterback in the first round, oftentimes trading up both times to go get their guy, and then they're gone the next year. We've seen this twice now. There's no way that the Bears can do that again, knowing that it's just going to continue to perpetuate the cycle that Matt Eberflus, Ryan Poles were hired to break.
Yeah, I think that is the interesting part for a lot of Bears fans, though, right? When you think about it, this is how you get to the John Fox, the Matt Nagy's, right? You start a rookie quarterback off with a head coach who was a part of the previous regime of quarterback and all of that, and the expectations are placed there. I guess the biggest thing that we have to look at is Ryan Poles looking at this season as you have to have a massive upgrade, or you have to have a massive step forward, where I guess, right, like you said, 9 wins is fine if it's Caleb Williams is doing it, the defense is playing well, and but because that's improvement. It's improvement on 7. That's moving in the right direction. I think the part where it starts to get tough is like, okay, what if he's stagnant? What if we start off looking unprepared? What if we take a step back early on? Because we've seen that in 2 years of Flus. Now, the first year, of course, he was a rookie head coach, very different. But that second year, right, we all expected us to hit the ground running. We got Packers first week. Bears are going to know what's expected of them. And then we saw that first week, and we were like, what happened to the expectations that you guys placed on yourselves to be ready for this game?
And there was a lot that went wrong last year at the beginning of the season. And I know, like, he was, God, that hot seat conversation going into week 5 at Washington, had they lost that game, I'm not sure he's the head coach anymore at that point. And what we know, though, is how they finished. And I don't think that that's any small feat for the front office in viewing that, and how ownership and people at the executive level, the decision makers inside Hallis Hall, view Matt Eberflus and his ability to right the ship. Like, that was I know it's a 7-10 finish. I know there were 3 games that they lost by giving up double-digit leads in the second half. Those things cannot happen again. Like that has to be the improvement that you see and I think that they view it as, well, the quarterback position is an upgrade. They're not going to have the fourth quarter turnovers, the mistakes within the 2-minute drill, within the 4-minute offense. They're not going to have some of the issues that held them back. Okay, if you don't have the issues that held you back, you should be a better team. You should be able to make up that margin of the games that swung in the losing direction for you in 2023 and flip that switch the other direction. But the expectations for last year, I know that Bears fans, and I'm not trying to go back through ancient history or history from more than a year ago, but a lot of Bears fans had expectations that 1000% did not match the expectations inside of Hallis Hall. And I remember having conversations with people inside the building, throughout the off season, early in the season, and even as they were just starting to get Montez Sweat in and get the team going in the right direction so they could at least finish strong. Right. And the feeling was, internally, the Bears did not feel that they were at the point that they could match the expectations from the outside, that it was, they got through 1 year of the rebuild and they were ready to go right away. Like, that was just so completely unrealistic. And they knew they still had several gaps that they had to fill, and they were not going to be close. This takes time. And they did it the hard way. They really did. Like, it's an ugly way to have to go through 1 year where you're set up for a 3-14 record to go get the number 1 overall pick. And then the following year, then you just start getting this thing off the ground. And it really takes until year 3 where you have the currency, like after, basically signing guys to 1-year contracts to fill out a roster to make sure that you put yourself in the right position from a strategy perspective to go get the number 1 overall pick. But then you start building. So I don't view this as anything other than the reason they kept Matt Eberflus is because if they were going to do it, like if they were really going to fire him, it would have already happened. They would have cleaned house with the staff in the offseason, in January, when they fired 5 members of the offensive staff. If they really wanted to start over, they had their chance. You can't expect them now to bring in a new quarterback, spend all this money on free agents and, spend draft capital on free agents as well, and then expect that all the pressure now is on Eberflus to win or he's out after 2024. I just don't view it that way, which is why when you view Matt Eberflus now, there's a confidence that he didn't necessarily exude early on when they were just trying to gut this thing through and get through the hardest 2 years of this rebuild. Now it feels like this, like in a way, this kind of feels like year 1 of, all right, show me what you can do when you have all of the resources at your disposal to do it, because the roster is in a far better shape for this team to actually win games than it was at this point a year ago.
Yeah. And the one thing, listen, I had questions on how Flus ran things. I had questions on when he had guys out there. But the one thing I don't question is his guys do play for him. And you have talented players on this roster now. And having talented players that are willing to go out there and play for you and play in the right way, that goes a long way in this league. And there is something to be said for that. And you got to give him credit for, especially with the start that they had, finishing the season as strong as they did. And yeah, there were some losses in there that I do look at the coaching staff, but I do look at the coaching staff and say, I think that you hindered your players from doing this. But I think even with that, there's a growth there. There's a learning process there that I hope he takes in here with Shane Waldron. Step in when you see that your offense is going too far one direction. Not to say, undermine the coach, but listen, we know Lovie Smith would switch over to the offensive side and be like, hey, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like we know that we've seen coaches do that in the past where it's not undermining your coach, but it's like, hey, we got to figure something out and we got to figure it out now. And Flus said that he would do that with Getsy. But, if that's the case, when you see him call the same screen pass the 4th time, maybe step in and say, hey, maybe we want to call something a little different here, guys. When you see that you haven't thrown the football in a half of football, you maybe go, hey, maybe we want to put this in the air a little bit here, guys. Yeah, I mean, let's try and figure this out. Yeah, I want to see, if anything, I want to see Flus change. It's just don't sit there and just watch things happen. Be the head coach, be the decision maker, and be that guy that's going to be like, listen, I trust you to do your job, but at the end of the day, I'm the guy that has this ship going the right direction, and I need to point us in a direction.
And let's not forget, this is still his first head coaching gig. Like, for some guys, it takes them more time to feel confident in being able to do that. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but he had a lot on his plate last year. His defensive coordinator resigns week 2. He has to go back to doing something that, he's clearly very good at calling a defense with the tendencies, the ability to be aggressive that we didn't see under Alan Williams. But it's like riding a bike, but sometimes you need some training wheels to get more comfortable before you take the training wheels off and you're going full sprint. Like, that took him time last year, on top of him trying to still be the CEO head coach, where he had to have his hand in a lot of different pots. And now that he has a defensive coordinator in Eric Washington, somebody he trusts to do all of the things that will allow him to go back to being that CEO style head coach, even though he's going to call the defense this year, I would like to believe that the freedom he'll have, that he's now done this for a year and learned, okay, like, if I can just delegate this here, delegate this to somebody else, this will allow me to have a better view of the entire product, where if there was an issue in the game, if he did feel that the offense, if there was something that he saw that he feels that Shane Waldron isn't seeing, that he would be comfortable in making that adjustment, in making that call that ultimately would override anybody else because he is the head coach. Now, you also want to have an offensive coordinator that you trust to run everything so you don't have to meddle in an area that truly is not your expertise. What we know from Seattle is that there were times, like even Pete Carroll came out last year and maybe even the year before and said like he wished they would have run the ball a little bit more. Now, Pete Carroll, defensive coach, Shane Waldron, offensive coach. When you hear things like that, that is a little bit of I wouldn't say it's a concern, but it is like, oh, okay. So like that at least that's on a track record where if you're Matt Eberflus, you hope you don't run into those same situations in Chicago. Yeah. But I think Eberflus's approach, especially with the offense, especially with the quarterbacks, that whole breakfast club thing that they do where he's part of those meetings and he has the one-on-one time with the most important player on the team, that's necessary for the Bears to move in the right direction, for him to kind of have the symbiotic relationship with the side of the ball that he's ultimately not with and not responsible for every moment of every day, the way that Shane Waldron is. And, you know, it's early on, but when you think about what they did at USC's Pro Day, how much time they spent out there, but also the one-on-one time that Eberflus got with Caleb Williams, 80 minutes, I believe is what he said. It brought them into a football office at USC's facility. And he like learned about him. It wasn't just putting him on the whiteboard and having, you know, testing his recall, teaching him the offense, you know, or teaching him like defensive concepts and be like, how would you attack this? Like, it wasn't just that. That's the stuff that took place from what they told us they were aiming to do, was testing his recall, doing all that during the top 30 visit. This was Eberflus's chance to get to know the quarterback on a more personal level, to talk to him about his football journey, to learn about his parents, to learn about some of the things that are priorities for him in his life, goals, like all of those things. And that's how you form a relationship with someone that will translate, hopefully, to the season, to building trust. Because at the end of the day, you're trusting that Shane Waldron's going to be able to help, like you're going to be able to lean on Shane Waldron to develop this quarterback. And you will have a part of that as the head coach, but ultimately Shane Waldron's the one teaching him the offense. And you got to trust that he'll be able to do that and that the quarterback will be able to receive that sort of teaching. And ultimately that falls on the head coach to make sure that those relationships are up to where they need to be and at the level where they need to be in order to see success early on. But I just feel like, you know, where Flus is right now, going into year 3, there's just not this pressure that I know from the outside. There are a lot of people who look at this and say, well, they better win now. And that's moving the goalpost, because there are a lot of people who look at Caleb Williams, look at the team parting ways with Justin Fields and saying, well, if you didn't think Justin could do it, like Caleb then better show he is that guy and then some, and then sometimes 20 right away. And I still don't think that that's realistic. And I don't think that's how the Bears are viewing it.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that it's very interesting how our confidence in Flus has skyrocketed and all of that. And I think that it's because of what the Bears have done, what they've put together, and the situation that they're bringing a young quarterback in. I love all of the components that we have.
They haven't proven anything, though. Like that's the thing, too. Like I saw them talking about this on Fox Sports the other day on Speak, and it was like talking about the expectations for the Bears this year. Like, should the playoffs be an expectation for a wild card team? Yes, but I don't see it as a situation where you have this like the Bears have to show you they can get there first before then you believe, okay, they should, to give them any sort of like marker of wins that's beyond where they were last year, like 7, 8. That's why I put them at 9. But ultimately, Flus's biggest test this year will be showing that they can be a competitive team and that he can field a competitive team and that you can build off of what you did a year ago and trust that it's not just, you know, a blip on the radar and that this team can be better, because ultimately you made choices to let go of certain people, staff and players, because you thought that the upgrades the people that you're bringing in were upgrades.
I agree with you. I think that there's some really good things to look at with this Bears team coming up. And I think Flus is going to have, listen, if anything, the expectations are there because he's got a team that looks like they should be able to meet at least some of those expectations. And I think when you look at the fact that they are so locked in, according to some of these rumors on Caleb Williams, right? We heard the rumor, I think this came out a couple of days ago about that Washington was looking to move up. They were willing to offer a huge package. I don't know if there's any validity to that, but I would assume that there's been some trade talks with teams that want to move up for that number 1 pick. Washington seems like a very interesting team because of Caleb being from there and things like that. I guess two-part question. Is there any validity to any of these rumors that we've heard with Washington? And if they are moving up, does that say so much about Ryan Poles' belief in, or if they did want to move up and Ryan Poles said no, what does that say about Ryan Poles' belief in Caleb Williams coming in here?
So I don't know about any specific package that was put together. I hadn't heard anybody credible reporting that Washington was trying to offer the farm to go get the number 1 overall pick. But the reason, I think you can kind of like deduce it to this, the reason the Bears have stayed at number 1, why they're going to stay at number 1, and why, from everything I've been told, there's no indication or no thought given to moving off of the number 1 overall pick is because they're that convinced that Caleb Williams is the guy for this organization. And when you are first off, the opportunity that they have to have the first overall pick, they don't want this again because it would have to be like a bad record at this point, because there's no other future first coming in here that's from another team that could yield them the number 1 overall pick again. That being said, you have an opportunity here to change the trajectory of your franchise with the best possible player. You have the entire draft board available to you. It would be way too risky for this team to move off of the number 1 overall pick, because if they're trading that pick, somebody else is going to go get Caleb Williams. They're not moving up for Jaden Daniels. They're not moving up for Drake May. They're not moving up for JJ McCarthy. I mean, somebody will move up for JJ McCarthy, but they're not getting him at number 1. They'd be moving up for the guy that you were so dead set convinced on that you didn't have any other quarterbacks of these top quarterbacks in for a top 30 visit, because Caleb is your guy. Caleb's not taking visits anywhere else because he is so dead set on the belief that he's going to Chicago. And if, we know that Ryan Poles and his staff, like dating back to Senior Bowl, dating back to the Combine and throughout the offseason, have there been calls on the number 1 overall pick? I'm sure there have been. I'm sure there have been offers that the Bears have thought, okay, that's great, but we're good where we are. And there's not really been much movement on the idea that they would trade the number 1 overall pick, because they are so convinced that the guy sitting there as the consensus number 1 overall player to be taken is the right guy for this franchise, which almost makes it a non-starter in a lot of different ways for why that conversation hasn't gone anywhere and why we haven't heard any real steam about teams positioning themselves to move up for the number 1 overall pick, because the Bears aren't trading it. Like, that's bottom line. They're not trading it because they're so convinced that Caleb Williams is that guy.
Yeah, it's I think that's the thing too, right? When I hear all these rumors, like so many people are taking this and going, you could have got the haul. You could have been able to build your team for years, right? And I'm just like,
they're already in a position to do that, though. Think about how many future picks that they have in 2025. They have multiple picks outside of like their 1 through 7, like the extra 2nd round pick from Carolina. Like Carolina's probably not going to be a very good team this year again. So they're going to be drafting like top 30s again next year in the 2nd round. Like, they're in a good spot to already be building towards, to build their team out after the 2024 season. Like, I don't buy that logic of get the haul, get even more picks. Well, at some point you got to start using those picks. And right now they're going to be using that pick that they got when they got a haul for the number 1 overall pick last year.
And what it says to me is, listen, did anybody look at Bryce Young last year and go, he's the answer, right? Maybe you looked at Jalen Carter a little bit and felt that way, but I don't think that I was sitting there like he's an irreplaceable player that the Bears had to go out and get. I think that the fact that you have Ryan Poles and you have this front office that has done a pretty good job in the draft going, no, we're good. Like, but we'll give you a king's ransom. No, we're good. That should tell you the belief that he has in this young man, the belief that, and to me, the belief that he has that he's going to be the one to turn it around, because making this selection comes with an immense amount of pressure. You probably get more leeway if you risk going with one of the other quarterbacks and fixing everything else by going out and drafting everything else. Like, I just feel like the fact that we're hearing all of this noise around teams that wanted to trade up, whether it's Washington or not, and Ryan Poles basically saying what he said for this entire time, we're not moving off of this pick. We're not going anywhere. We're taking Caleb Williams. That should give you some confidence in Caleb Williams a little bit. That should give you some confidence. Sure. And not only just in the fact that he's going to be the quarterback here, but that Ryan Poles says, I'm so confident in him, I'm going to put a team on the field that should be winning by the next couple of years.
Yeah. And the amount of resources they've poured into Caleb Williams already, sent 9 people out to his pro day. They had him in the first chance they could on a top 30 visit. They're not bringing in other top quarterbacks on top 30 visits. He's not taking other visits to other teams because he knows that the Bears are dead set on drafting him. Like, all of those things should be signs to anybody who thinks that the Bears might pull a fast one on draft day and move back one spot. Like, it's just not realistic. It's an opportunity cost that would be so expensive for them to pass up by moving back one spot. And if there was somebody else, like if there was truly, because I know that they like JJ McCarthy, but they don't like him as much as they clearly love Caleb Williams.
Yes.
If there was a tiebreaker, or God, we'd be happy with either of these quarterbacks, then you could understand the, like, giving validity to the argument of moving back a spot or two. But as we've gotten past the Justin Fields trade just about a month ago now, and as we've gotten through pro days and top 30 visits and the draft is getting closer, if they haven't made that choice by now, they're not going to. And from everything we have heard, everything that I have been told, they're not giving consideration to it because this is already a done deal at this point. This is a mere formality that they're going to have to sit on the clock on round 1 and wait to call Caleb Williams' name. And when you are so convinced on a prospect being the right fit for your organization, I would say, like, the hard part would be, like, don't talk yourself out of that guy thinking like, all right, well, what if I could get, what if I could recoup some draft capital? What if I could put this team in a position to get a 2nd-round pick this year? I'm sure those are thoughts that Ryan Poles and his staff have had to kind of like fend off when it's the obvious answer is Caleb Williams at number 1, do it, be done with it, move on. That's what's going to happen, barring anything insane happening. But, like, if there was something to come out where it's like, okay, well, the Bears aren't completely sold on Caleb Williams. Maybe it is Jaden Daniels. Maybe it is Drake May. Maybe it is JJ McCarthy. We would have already heard that stuff by now. We're too far into the process for, like, any sort of rumor of them to be willing to move off number 1 actually having legs to it. It's just, it's a wrap at this point.
We're 2 weeks away. I know that everybody, loves the movie
Draft Day.
But I mean, like, there's no, hey guys, we had Draft Day here, right? Like, he went rogue and he went and picked his guy that nobody else wanted. That was Mitch. Yeah, we had that here. We don't want that anymore. I'm good with the situation that we got now. Let's keep this thing moving along. I think it's very interesting to see a lot of the rumors that are flying around this time of year and some of the random news that we've got around the NFL. We got some rumors here, Courtney, that is all over the place. Tom Brady's talking about coming back. People are losing their minds. He was on a show earlier, Deep Cuts with Big Blends, talking about, let's go through a situation. Maybe it's the Niners. Maybe you're headed to the playoffs. The offense is great. All of this talking about teasing a return. And Brady's response was, the Patriots could be the Raiders. You never know. I'm not opposed to it. I don't know if they're going to let me if I become an owner of an NFL team. I don't know. I'm always going to be in good enough shape, always going to be able to throw the ball. So to come in for a little bit like Michael Jordan come back, I don't know if they let me, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. Will we ever see Tom Brady back in the NFL?
No.
Or is he just messing with people?
I think it's hard for athletes to, like, fully shut the door and lock it. So when he says, oh, well, I wouldn't be opposed to it, the thought of coming back, the thought of coming out of retirement after he's already told us in that video he released when he retired after the 2022 season, like, no, for real, I'm done this time. You're not going to see me doing this a third time. of course, time changes things and you do miss the game. And guys have a really difficult time letting that go, even when they feel like they've let it go.
Yeah.
But he's trying to get ownership stake in the NFL right now. So if that goes through, that's a complete non-starter for him, even thinking of coming back. But like, can we also like be realistic about this? Coming back at 47 years old? Really, Pat? Like, I know that he said he's always going to be in shape, but he's talking about like come back like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan came
was
back
40.
at one. I'm sorry?
I said Jordan was 39, 40.
Like,
that's very different.
But it's also like, which comeback is he talking about? Like, he didn't specify that one. Like, come back like when he came out of his like 18-month hiatus and win 3 titles, or I don't know. Like, at some point, too, you don't want to become the punchline. You don't want to become the guy who comes back and isn't, just can't be away from the game, can't let it go. And not saying that the game would pass Tom Brady by, but you have to think at some point he's got to understand that physically the demands of that position, the demands of being a quarterback in today's NFL, no matter how great of shape you stay in outside of football and just doing it on your own, you will not be able to compete with people who are 10 years younger than you at the very minimum. So this is just, he also said that he thinks Josh Allen is going to be the next to win a Super Bowl. So there was a lot coming out from that podcast. And when Tom Brady speaks, people listen. I get that. Yeah. But this is also just, now we're talking about it. Like, is he really coming back? Like, no, he's not. And I think that that's kind of, I don't know why, like, I don't know what he's supposed to say other than no when he's asked that question, but I just don't think he has it in him to truly shut that door and be like, nah, I'm good. Because when you have competed at that high of a level, when you have 7 rings, you're always going to think, what if I could give myself a chance for one more, without actually going through the intimate thought process of it would look like this for the next, 9 months. Like, to get your body in shape just to be able to do that. Like, and I know he says he's in good shape, but there's a difference between being in good shape and staying ready and being an NFL quarterback and going through that daily grind that he would have to go through. God, like if the thought was for him to come back right now, it's April 12th, season, like training camp starts in 3.5 months just to get your body in shape for training camp. Like, come on. I have no qualms about him being able to pick up whatever offense he'd go to, anything like that. But this is just like the point of the offseason we're in. We're like, okay, maybe Tom Brady will come back. Somebody asked him the question. Now let's debate about the possibilities. There's no freaking way.
I think what's funny about it is I don't have doubts that he could go out there and make all the throws. I don't have doubts that he could still pick up like the NFL timing and all of that. I have no doubts that he could pick up a system. When you see guys take a year off at regular ages, though, they normally do not come back the same. We've seen it, right, with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, due to his situation, had to take that year off. He did not come back as the same player, did not come back as the Deshaun Watson that we thought was the guy. Tom Brady's 47. Deshaun Watson's not even 30 yet, I don't think. Tom Brady's 47 years old. The first hit he'd take probably would kill him at this point.
That's what I don't understand, like how we got to this point where we're debating, okay, could this guy actually come back? And of course, this is not the last time we're going to hear this. He'll be 47 in August. So like he's 46 now. He's almost there. Somebody's going down with injury because this league is 100% injury rate. And his name is going to come up. Even though we know in our minds, like playing quarterback at 47 years old, he can make the throws, but the speed off the edge, these defenders that are coming to like attack you as a quarterback, it's so unrealistic. But there's going to be somebody who goes down, and they're going to always, until he's probably like 50, someone's going to throw out the option, well, Tom Brady's, what if he came out of retirement? Like, no way. No way.
I'd almost say 51 because Brady has beaten time so bad that people are like, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, I'd almost say, like the other side of 50, they'd be like, all right, maybe it's a little too far-fetched.
It's too far-fetched now, but people are like not willing to like give it up because he's not willing very clearly to shut that door completely.
I think what's always, like we always hear Waddle talk about this. He says the thing that he misses most is the locker room. The things he misses most are, being around the guys. And that's why that's why Brady will stay around the game. That's why Brady will always be a part of some kind of team. He'll be the guy that just pops his head in the locker room and he'll get that fill, and then he'll go back out and he'll be like, I don't want to do that again. Like, he'll see some dude taping his ankle or taking an ice bath. I'm good. Yeah, I mean, like, I think but I do think there is always that, right? Like, we know Jordan, I believe at 47 when he was an owner of the Bobcats, was like, y'all are terrible, and I can beat you at the age that I'm at now. And went out there and did it. Steven Jackson is confirmed. He was like, beat all of us, and told us take his shoes off. Yeah, I mean, like, so there's always going to be that where, like, Brady's probably going to, like, end up owning a team, walk into some scrimmage and be like,
Sure.
I could kill all of y'all, right? Like, I still got it. So that's the extent of what I want to see Brady doing, NFL, anything. Maybe in the UFL, maybe try out for the UFL. I think you can still play there. Here's another interesting thing that we heard. Packers and Eagles are supposed to be playing in Brazil on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
But the NFL is putting everything as of now behind a paywall. Are we getting out of hand? Is it turning into too much where, I mean, listen, you're basically killing old NFL fans at this point. Like, they are struggling to try and find these games. I know I had to help my when my grandfather was still here. He's like, it's Thursday night. Like, what channel is it on? Yeah, I mean, like, I was like, it's Prime. We'll figure it out. I'll be over there. Like, is it turning into too much, putting all of these games behind the paywall?
Once they opened the door to streaming services, like, Amazon doing the games on Thursday night, I'd even say, like, before that, when they had some of the games on NFL Network that, at times, and obviously I think there was the share with Fox where it'd be broadcast on both, I want to say.
Right.
Like, there are moments where, I mean, during the preseason, local networks have the rights to games. So in Chicago, preseason games are shown on Fox 32. That's the broadcast partner that they have. That's how it works. But, like, then it gets in season, and if you don't have Amazon on a Thursday night, if you don't have a Prime subscription, then you have to go somewhere to watch it. And I think this is, I mean, it's a topic of, like, a lot of bigger things that are, like, with RSNs, like, within all sports, like baseball's dealing with this right now with RSN. So that's where my mind goes first about having subscriptions for, if I want to watch my team, I may at some point have to buy some sort of subscription service just to be able to get the games for my team that I want to see. And that's where things are trending. The NFL is teetering kind of on that edge here with, where are they broadcast? I don't even know. Like, where are they broadcasting Eagles Packers? Because it's that Friday night game that's, like, in the midst of when I think there's several college games on that day too, but they're hoping that they can take some of those eyeballs away. They're giving, like, we're going to have football, like, every single night that week, I think, going into the first week of the NFL season, except for Tuesday, because there'll be Monday games coming off of college for that weekend. And then, as we know, Maction and all those things start up earlier in the week. And then there's Thursday night football. Then there's this game. And then Saturday is college football. They're trying to tap into an audience that they know is going to pay for their product, because that's always what happens with the NFL. Like, they see a market, they see an opportunity, and they're going to go for it. Is it hurting older NFL fans? Yeah. Frankly, I don't know if the NFL cares about that. The NFL cares about the bottom line and the amount of money they can make off of an opportunity to put a game on Friday night in a foreign country, because there's the novelty element. And they also know people are going to be so starved for football that by that time, anybody's going to jump in on trying to pay for something to be able to watch it.
This one's on Peacock, so it's going to be streamed on Peacock. They've done a couple of things with Peacock.
Yeah, they did
already.
They did the wild card game there. I remember, like, I don't have Peacock, like the subscription service, but my mom's Xfinity does. So, like, I had to sign in to her account just to be able to watch that game. Yep. And that's what's going to happen for a lot of people. Like, I might as well pay the however much it's going to be to, like, get Peacock. Maybe you'll cancel it. But the hope then is, well, there might be another game, so maybe I'll just keep the subscription going.
You just forget about it.
Yeah, like, that's the logic that they're using behind all of this right now. So it wouldn't surprise me if we end up seeing more of this happen as more networks try to get themselves involved in this. But it's certainly not something that other leagues haven't been able to capitalize on that just yet. Like we haven't seen the NBA outside of like NBA TV, which is kind of like that during the regular season, and MLB TV, like watching out of market games. I mean, the NFL had already been there with Sunday Ticket, and it's.
I think what's interesting too is like, are they doing the smart thing here? Are they doing the right? Like we talk about like, you're kind of making things more difficult for older fans, but then you look at baseball and it's like, well, baseball only catered to the older fans, and now people are like, we're kind of fine with baseball. Like, leave it back with the older fans. Like, I think that they're just moving in the right direction. I hate that it's all paywall stuff. Like, I would love for there to be like and it is also on NFL Plus, so I guess you can get it there if you sign up for the NFL service. You can get it there as well.
That's still like over 15 a month. Like that's right. To get. And I don't even in NFL Plus, that's not getting it on your TV, like the way that you can get Sunday Ticket via YouTube. That's watching it on your phone. That's watching it on your computer. Because I have that NFL Plus account, and that's how I'm able to get Red Zone. But it's not, I can't stream it on my TV. It's like I'm watching it on my phone.
And see, that's when you gotta circumvent it. That's where the technology comes in. You cast that mug straight to the TV. Now you got it on the TV, but you don't have a phone for the entire day. But I'm watching football all day. I mean, get the backup phone, Courtney. That's how you make that happen. The backup to the backup phone. Let's finish it out here. We got our road to the draft. This is an interesting one. EO sent us this one this morning, because we've heard that the Bears would be interested in trading back at this number 9 pick. But if there were a situation where one of those premier tackles that we know that the Bears are interested in were to drop, so a Joe Alt is to drop to the number 9 pick, would that change the Chicago Bears draft plan? The road to the draft brought to you by Toyota. Toyota, let's go places. Courtney, your thoughts?
Well, we know that offensive tackle is a position that they're looking at 9. So when Ryan Poles got back from owners meetings, the staff was supposed to go for to the 3 pods. So group was looking at wide receivers, pass rushers, and then offensive tackle. I thought it was kind of interesting that he named those positions by name. Typically their thought is at 9, you're going best player available, because to get into the top 10, to have your pick of the premier talent in the NFL draft class that you're drafting in.
Right.
You could make an argument for a lot of players there. But if Joe Alt was available to the Bears, if he gets past, we know Tennessee's typically the team that you see most often. I believe they're at 7. It's right after the New York Giants at 6.
Yeah. That's 7, and then 8 is Atlanta.
So could it happen? It would not shock me at all. Although, if players are dropping like that, and I feel like they're in honestly, I don't think offensive line, the tackle spots, are as big of a need right now when there are, if we're thinking about true needs, the truest of true needs is finding a pass rusher.
Yeah.
Point blank.
100%.
But if you're sitting there at 9 and you have a whole bunch of players that you're like, man, I could go this way, I could go this way, I could go this way, then I think you're in a prime spot to say, all right, someone's going to be available if we move. One of these guys that we love is going to be available if we move back a couple of spots to the middle of the first round. And then you can at least give yourself a shot to get another bite at the apple a little bit later on, because that means you're probably getting, not only are you moving back in the first round, but you're probably getting a 2nd round pick, or at least somewhere on day 2 that gives you more than just 75, which is what they currently have in their arsenal for the 2nd day of the draft. But you've got to be so in love with this prospect and be so blown away that he dropped to you that you would stay there at 9 and draft an offensive tackle when receiver probably would still be there on the board. And at least one that you thought you would really like, whether it's, God, if Malik Neighbors is there, how do you say no to that? And I'm having the hardest time with this pick, because there's so many different paths that they can go, which is good. It's good to have options. It's good to be able to project, all right, might there be 4 quarterbacks taken at that point? Could it go offense 1 through 8? And then they're sitting there oh man, we've got the whole selection of defensive players at our disposal. How do we go about this? They're in a good spot. It's the least talked about first round pick. That's that I can remember in terms of because all the attention's on number 1 and Caleb Williams. But it's such a pivotal point for them to get a high impact player in who can help in the short and the long term, that if Joe Alt's there, they've got to be like dead set on this is the franchise left tackle like for the next 10 years. Because I honestly think that Braxton Jones, when Ryan Poles talks about, I think he can be I think he is a starting tackle in the NFL, starting left tackle in the NFL, but they wouldn't rule out bringing in competition. They've got to be like so head over heels convinced he is the one to, if he falls there at 9, for them to draft him. Because it's not drafting for need. It's drafting for this is the best player available on our board, because they'd be passing up other options that could be potentially more immediate of a contributor. Although unless they think, okay, well, Braxton Jones is going to become our swing tackle at this point, then you go Joe Alt. I could see that, but I really feel like it would be difficult to see him go past 7 and still be available.
Of the players who we've heard that may end up falling, right? I think, I don't know if Neighbors falls at all, but like we've heard that Odunze may be there. Turner may end up being there for the Bears. Joe Alt, it'd be interesting. I agree with you. I think Tennessee is a shoe-in for Joe Alt, but like, I guess where would you rank it where it's like, if that guy's there, there's no way they're moving on from this 9th pick?
Like if Marvin Harrison Jr. fell, my goodness. Like that's yeah, like that.
Maybe. I mean, teams are worried about the medicals all of a sudden from what we're hearing, right?
Well, I think Malik Neighbors just makes a very good case to be the first wide receiver taken in this draft. And his 40 time blew people away. His, ability to be a deep ball threat. I think it was like 17.6 yards per catch on 89 catches last year at LSU. Like, I mean, he's a big play, dynamic threat. So could he be the first receiver taken? That wouldn't surprise anybody that I've talked to. But, if Marvin Harrison Jr. was there, like he's one of the smoothest prospects I think that I can remember seeing coming out of college, and just the way that he makes it look playing receiver. You want to support Caleb Williams. You want to put him in the best spot to succeed. If he's there, how could you possibly pass up on the guy that we had been talking about being the consensus top receiver taken? Like if for some reason he's not, that would be a very difficult thing for them to move off of 9 and be like, oh, well, we'll just get somebody a little bit later on. Like that's the one I would break the rule for personally.
And I mean, listen, he's been in the building. They've worked with him, so they've seen him. They know what he's made of. Y'all know how I feel about MSJ. I'd be willing to trade up for MSJ. Like I'm all in on the offense. I think that he's that good of a player. I think he's going to be a monster on the field. And I think if you pair him up in a system that's kind of already set for him to be like, listen, you don't have to be the guy, but every now and then if you want to be the guy, that's fine. Like I just think that you have such a great situation here that Ryan Poles has built out. And I think that for any of the guys that come here, and that's why, like, when you talk about that 9th pick being a tough pick to decide, I agree with you, because it's like Jared Verse would be coming into a great situation. Dallas Turner's coming into a great situation. Joe Alt's coming into a great situation. Like, this is nobody that you're bringing in as a rookie, probably for the first time in Bears history, outside of like Caleb Williams, are you looking at and going, if you're not good on like the first couple of weeks, we may have a problem here. Because if I take MSJ or it's Rome Odunze, I got Keenan Allen, I got DJ Moore, I've got options, right?
Yeah,
you can
learn. Wealth of riches
grow
at that point.
It's so nice to see. It's so refreshing, and still just 2 weeks away from this draft. And my God, I cannot wait for draft day. Mostly so there's something new to talk about, though. Like, let's be real. Courtney, we appreciate you as always coming on the show. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave the 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. For Courtney Cronin, I'm Pat the Designer. Y'all stay tuned in with us. This is another week of the Chicago Bears podcast. I just peeped this is a Friday episode. There's going to be some alcohol in the house later. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. I just got a little excited. I thought this was Thursday this whole time. Peace.